Stop for a moment from whatever you are eating right now, especially if you're eating broccoli or cauliflower. Take a close look at its shape. You will see that one tiny floret of broccoli has exactly the same shape as the entire head of broccoli, just in a much smaller size. If you cut that floret again, the even smaller part still has an identical shape. Congratulations, you have just discovered a bug, or more accurately, a core feature of the universal operating system we call fractals. From a design logic, nature is actually very efficient, or to put it bluntly, lazy. Instead of creating a new design for every leaf, every tree, or every river flow, nature prefers to write one simple line of instructional code and execute it repeatedly across different scales. This phenomenon is called self-similarity. The universe doesn't need a massive amount of memory to design a galaxy, it only needs the right repetition formula. Welcome to Arc Chaos and Order in the segment Patterns in Nature. In this sixth episode, we will dismantle 8 fractal patterns that serve as the blueprint of our physical reality. We will see how simple repetition can create incredibly beautiful complexity. Prepare your observation logic. Let's dissect them one by one. Branching, the efficient distribution protocol. The first pattern is branching. Look at the tree in front of your house, lightning during a storm, or the blood vessels in your lungs. They all use the same pattern. One large trunk splits into 2 smaller branches, 2 into 4, and so on. The logic is transportation optimization. Nature needs a way to move energy or nutrients from a central point to as wide a surface as possible using the shortest path possible. Without fractal branching patterns, your lungs would just be empty bags failing to absorb oxygen maximally. With this pattern, your lungs have a surface area equivalent to a tennis court inside your small chest. Branching dictates our logic to understand that complexity is merely the result of one simple instruction: split into 2. Nature doesn't design every branch manually, it simply gives the command to divide continuously. Spirals, the boundless growth protocol. The second form is spirals. You can find them in snail shells, the swirl of a galaxy, even the way water spins down a drain. Why a spiral? Because mathematically, this is the only way for something to grow larger without having to structurally change its basic shape. The logic of a spiral is consistent expansion. A nautilus shell, for example, grows by adding one new room that is slightly larger at the end of the old one with a constant angle. This is high-level spatial efficiency. Your point of view, look at a sunflower. Its seeds are arranged in counter-rotating spirals so that as many seeds as possible can fit inside the circle without any wasted empty space. Spirals dictate our logic to understand that progress doesn't always have to be linear. Sometimes we just need to rotate on the same principle but on a broader scale. Symmetry, the balance and security protocol. The third form is symmetry. The left and right side of your face, butterfly wings, or flower petals usually mirror each other. The logic of symmetry is about balance and security. Biologically, symmetrical animals find it easier to move straight and maintain gravitational balance. But there is another, more clever logic: redundancy. Having 2 symmetrical eyes or 2 lungs is nature's way of providing insurance. If one fails, you still have a backup. Your brain is trained to recognize symmetry as an indicator of health and order. Symmetry dictates your mind to seek harmony amidst chaos. Nature uses symmetry so we know which is the result of systemic design and which is merely a random accident. Tessellation, the space closing protocol. Moving on to the fourth pattern, tessellation, or mosaic patterns that repeat without gaps. The most legendary example is the hexagonal honeycomb, fish scales, or the pattern on a pineapple skin. The logic is structural integrity. Nature absolutely hates voids and the waste of material. The hexagon in a honeycomb is the most efficient shape to cover a surface with as little material as possible while maintaining the strongest structural integrity. Every wall shares the load with the hole next to it. Your point of view, when you look at the square tiles on your floor, it feels neat, right? Nature had already standardized these tiles millions of years before hardware stores existed. Tessellation dictates our logic to understand that true strength comes from the cooperation of small parts that interlock perfectly. Meanders, the energy dissipation protocol. Ever wondered why rivers always wind like snakes and almost never run straight? This pattern is called meanders. The logic is speed control. If a river were straight, the water would slide too fast, damaging the land at the end and wouldn't have time to feed the surrounding ecosystem. By winding, the water is forced to slow down, deposit nutrients, and spread life to a wider area. Winding is nature's way of dampening energy that is too large so it doesn't become destructive. Humans learn from this logic when building winding mountain roads for braking safety. Meanders dictate our logic to understand that detours are often safer and more beneficial than dangerous shortcuts. Waves, the energy transfer protocol. The sixth pattern is waves, visible in the ocean, desert sand dunes, even cloud patterns. Waves are nature's way of moving energy through matter without having to move the matter permanently. The logic is oscillation and resonance. Your point of view, when you throw a stone into a calm pond, the ripples spread repeatedly in increasingly large scale. You realize that every ripple is a duplication of the previous one with decaying energy. A wave is a sign that there is energy passing through. Waves dictate our logic to understand that everything in this life has a rhythm. There are times to rise and times to fall. The universe is a symphony of vibrations whose patterns repeat at every level of reality. Foams, the maximum support protocol. The seventh pattern is foams, which you can see in bath soap, latte foam, even the internal structure of human bones. Foam is a collection of small bubbles pressing against each other. The logic is lightweight stability. Foam is nature's way of building strong structures without becoming heavy. If your bones were solid like rock, you wouldn't be able to run because of your weight. But because the structure is like rigid foam, it becomes very strong at bearing load while remaining light enough to move. Your point of view? Look at soap suds and notice how every bubble always tries to form a 120-degree angle when they meet. This is a rule of pure mathematics. Foams dictate our logic that strength doesn't always mean density. Sometimes intelligently arranged empty space is far solid. Cracks, the stress relief protocol. Finally, a pattern often considered broken but is actually part of the design. Cracks. Look at cracked dry earth, cracks in tree bark, or cracks in polar ice. The logic of cracks is stress relief, the release of pressure on matter. When a material is pulled or shrinks beyond its elastic limit, it must break so the internal pressure is released. Interestingly, crack patterns almost always form fractal patterns similar to branching. Cracks are nature's way of finding the easiest path to break in an orderly manner. Your point of view, when you look at your cracked phone screen, you're seeing the same laws of physics at work. Cracks dictate our logic to understand that even destruction has a pattern. Nothing is truly random. Even when something breaks, the universe still does it by following logical geometric rules. So, what is the common thread of these 8 fractal patterns? Logically, fractals are nature's solution to overcome memory constraints. The universe doesn't need a supercomputer to design every tree in detail. It only needs to store one simple instruction and execute it repeatedly. This phenomenon of self-similarity proves that the patterns in your brain are similar to the map of the global internet network, and atomic structures are similar to the structure of the solar system. We live inside a reality built from repetition. The universe is lazy in designing, but genius in executing. It uses these patterns so that life can grow efficiently, stably, and beautifully. Fractals are proof that behind the complexity of a world that looks messy, chaos, there are actually lines of mathematical code that are very orderly. Order. Thank you for watching until the end. If you like how we explain complex things to make them make more sense, don't forget to follow Synoptic. We will continue to discuss many everyday things that are actually fascinating as long as they're explained the right way. Synoptic, the world simplified, one thought at a time.